Hi everyone, welcome back to the Stitches and Scribbles channel. My name is Erin and I have a crafting podcast for you today. So we'll be going over all of my current projects that I'm working on, all of the things that I've finished recently, and some acquisitions that I've gotten in the last month or two so that I can show you kind of all the stuff that's been going on here in my basement office. Let's start with some finished objects first. So this is my pile of finished objects right here. We'll start with the most recent one. No, the ends are not woven in because there's about 500 of them, but I finally finished my scrap sweater that I was working on. It is a fairly long sweater. It's slightly tunic length, not like down to mid-thigh tunic length, but a little bit past the hip. And the sleeves are full length with a nice thick ribbed cuff on them. And this sweater was one that sat kind of in my whips area for a really long time before it was completed. I have no idea what pattern I started with when I made this. I probably have mentioned it in a previous podcast episode, but it's been so long that I don't remember what it is. I know it was a YouTube video tutorial for a rolled collar raglan. But beyond that, I don't know what pattern it was. So the point that I picked it up most recently, I had already split for the sleeves and had done a big chunk of the body. So all I did in the last month or two was finish the body and finish the sleeves, which didn't require any increasing or decreasing other than around the cuff. So I didn't really need the pattern in order to finish it. But speaking of the bottom of the sweater, I don't know if I showed this in the last podcast episode or not, but I decided to split the hem and then knit a front panel and garter stitch and a back panel and garter stitch. And the back panel is slightly longer than the front panel. They're also two different colors, just because the sweater was already crazy. I figured why not add a little more to it. I did make sure that the front panel matched the yarn that I used for the collar, and then the back panel matches the yarn that I used for the cuff. So I was kind of trying to tie in the edges a little bit there, but not anything too specific. Mostly I wanted to make sure that the rest of the collar yarn ended up on an edging of the sweater somewhere because it does have some sparkle in it. So I didn't want like a random sparkly stripe somewhere else in the sweater. In order to construct this, I held together, what is it called? Lion Brand Kobu yarn with all of my sock scraps. That kind of gave it like the cohesiveness of having the like minty teal color everywhere, but the stripes are made by the sock yarn. For the sleeves, I just knit them straight from whatever stitch count I had. And then one row before starting the cuff, I decreased every other stitch to kind of pull them in a little bit, and then used a rib stitch for the cuff itself to kind of draw it in a little bit more. So I'm really happy with how this turned out, other than the collar I think is going to continuously roll, but I might thread some elastic through the collar in order to fix that a little bit and see if that helps. But I kind of just wanted this sweater to be like a sweatshirt that I could throw on. That's why I did the cotton blend yarn to give it some nice drape without adding like more wool and warmth to it. It will be a warm sweater, don't get me wrong, but I stuck with the cotton to avoid it being like too sweaty feeling. But I wanted this to kind of be like the equivalent of a favorite sweatshirt, but in knit sweater form. So that is the end of that project once I sew in all of the ends. I do think that it's not as insane looking as I thought it was going to be, although like looking at those stripes, I don't really know what I'm talking about when I say that. But I don't think it would be out of the question to wear it out of the house. It's not so crazy looking that it's not wearable, if that makes any sense. I do have plans for another one using kind of my more subdued colors of sock scrap yarn, more like neutrals and deeper tones and dusty tones, And I have that paired with the same Kobu yarn, but in a beige instead of a bright blue, just to kind of have two versions, one leaning more neutral and one leaning more neon, which was this one. My next finished object was a pair of socks. And I think I'm pretty safe in saying this on here because I don't think my in-laws watch my YouTube videos. And if they do, oops, I already showed them on camera. But these are a pair of socks for Christmas for my sister-in-law. And this year I decided to get smart with making socks for a group of people and made sure that all the sock colors I chose, I could use the same color for the heels and toes of all the pairs that I was making. So this is the first finished pair from that set. Both of these yarns are opal sock wool. I forgot to save the label from the self-striping colorway, so I don't know exactly which one this is. I do know it's from their like vitamin E enhanced line, but I got these at the Seven Sisters yarn store in St. Louis, Missouri, so quite a ways away from me. But I really like how these worked up. I think the self-striping is very fun. I like how it looks with the contrast heel and toe, which I knew I wanted to do for the yarns I had picked anyway, because I didn't want to disrupt the striping pattern with the heels. So since I knew I was doing contrast heel and toe anyway, I just made sure that all 3 pairs of socks I need to make for my in-laws coordinated with that heel color somehow. But this is the first finished pair. I just used the SOS like plain sock pattern from Summer Lee. It's the one that I always use. I like the directions for that. I like the video tutorial help for that. It is a cuff down, heel flap and gusset sock pattern. So pretty easy. But socks lately have been my mobile project that kind of goes with me everywhere, because I wanted to make sure that these were done in time for Christmas, which I'm filming this in February, so clearly I've got one pair done in time. But I didn't want these to be something that I was stressed about when the holiday time started to hit. So I just keep my sock projects in a small bag that can be picked up and taken wherever I need it to go. So a big majority of these socks were knit either at friends' houses while watching movies or the Super Bowl, and also at bars. So that is where my sock knitting gets done nowadays. My next finished object is one that was in my like unfinished objects pile for a long time, and I made it a episode of Finish Fix or Frog, which is something I do on both YouTube Shorts and TikTok, where I just grab a project from my random collection of stuff I haven't finished and decide what I'm going to do with it. So this was obviously a finish project, and it is a short sleeve, actually close to sleeveless. I guess it does technically have a sleeve, but it's a very short one. A short sleeved granny stitch cropped cardigan. I picked this to finish because I knew that we do have warmer weather coming, as much as it doesn't feel like it at the moment, and that this was something that I would probably want to wear over t-shirt dresses to school or to work. I work at a school. Once it gets a little bit warmer. I also thought that this could be cute for Easter. I do have a t-shirt dress in like a deep teal color, so I thought that it would be cute with that. I also have several like short sleeve blouses that it would look cute over. But I just thought having a spring piece ready to go would be a good idea for me, so I just went ahead and knocked that out. This one I'm pretty sure was a fiber spider tutorial for a granny stitch cardigan or granny stitch kimono. I'm not sure what it was called. And I used a set of yarn. I can't remember. Oh no, it was the Yarn Bee color sets of yarn. So I've got a couple hanging behind me back there. There's like the pink, red, green one, and then there's a lavender and purple one behind it. but they were kind of gradient sets of colors. I actually got mine from Goodwill. I don't think that they make those anymore, but I ended up with 3 pairs of colors. So I used 1 pair for this spring cardigan. And when I say pair, I mean like 2 collections of the same colorways, just like I have hanging behind me. So I could do something similar in the like pink, red, green colorway and the purple colorway, but I probably won't. I'll probably do something different with those. But it was fun to kind of play with a palette of yarn that all came together. My next finished objects are actually a tutorial that will be out soon, or is already out by the time you're seeing this because of what order I filmed things in. But these are crochet soap savers. So this was my practice one I did to kind of check what design I wanted, and then this is the one that you see in the video tutorial. These are both sugar and cream cotton yarns. I don't remember the colorway. They were both balls I had left over from other projects. You can also see that my green one is ever so slightly bigger than the purple one. It's because I started with a different number of chains than I did for this one. I do think the smaller one is slightly better, but you can check out that tutorial. It should be the second most recent video on my channel before this one. It should also be in my Easy Crochet Tutorials playlist. And for those of you who knit instead of crochet, don't worry, a knit version is coming soon, probably sometime in April. I ended up having to space these out because of the vlogs that I wanted to have come out in March. So that's what those are. And then my final finished object for the month did get its own video that has already been out for a while now. So if you want more information on this, you can check out my bouquet blanket vlog that I did. This is a baby blanket that I made for some very dear friends who were very, very, very excited when, actually before they found out they were pregnant. The mom-to-be had shown me a Pinterest pin of a bouquet blanket and very specifically said that if she ever had a girl, that this is what she wanted. And then they found out that they were expecting a girl. So as of filming this, the baby shower is tomorrow. So I'm very excited to gift this to her tomorrow, along with some picture books, because they asked for picture books for baby. So the books that I picked out are Fancy Nancy, which seemed very appropriate with a very fancy baby blanket. And The Real Tooth Fairy by Marilyn Kay, which I believe is now an out-of-print book. I had to do a little digging to find it, but also very beautiful, soft illustrations that I felt kind of went with the vibes that they're going with. So Fancy Nancy was kind of a fun, quirky, but still very girly pick, and then The Real Tooth Fairy was kind of softer and still very magical and childlike. So really excited about all of that. Let's go into let's talk about acquisitions. So first thing I have is actually not for me. I have a friend who went on a work trip to Iceland recently. Actually, he is dad of baby girl who is coming soon. He went to Iceland for a work trip and really loved the Icelandic knitting that he saw there. Wanted to get a hat but couldn't find one in the color that he wanted, but ended up at a shop that had not only the finished knit objects but also the yarn to make things. So he picked out 2 skeins in the color that he wanted and asked if I would make him a hat. So this is Lopi brand Icelandic wool. It's 100% wool, no surprises there. And I don't actually see a whole ton of other information on it. I believe that this is probably around a 3-weight yarn, maybe a 4-weight yarn. And he got 2 skeins. They are 110 yards each, which should be just enough to make a little hat. So he did not give me any directions on what he wanted the hat to look like. I asked if he wanted textured or more plain, and he said he was leaving it up to me. So This might be featured in a vlog at some point because I really like design challenges like that, as you can see from the baby blanket that I made for the same couple. But I kind of want to play with some more intense designs for this one, since it is going to be a small project, but very cool yarn to work with. So I'm excited to cast that on at some point. Other acquisitions. One of them is kind of a interesting tool purchase. So I got some unspun wool. At this point, it's well over a year ago, from a local farm. And I had gotten a drop spindle from the Wisconsin Sheep and Wool festival. And thought that the wool that I had purchased was like ready to be spun, and then really struggled with it on my drop spindle. I could not make any progress. I was not getting any like actual usable yarn out of it. So I kind of took that whole project, shoved it in a bag in my cabinet, and decided to look at it again when I had some more time and less frustration toward it to try it again. However, I realized something, because a couple of the other content creators I follow in the like fiber crafts community have been doing a little bit more spinning lately, and I looked at the wool that they were spinning with versus the wool that I had, and went and kind of had the thought process of something's missing with the wool fluff that I got. It's denser than it should be, and I realized it's because this wool hasn't been carded, or at least not carded to the degree it needs to be in order to spin with it. So I ordered some wool carders, and these are very small ones, so not anything fancy. They did come with 2 little finger picks, I think just to protect your fingers if you're like touching the top of it. To me, these look like cat brushes, but they should get the job done. So sometime when I have a minute, I'm going to try to card a little bit of the wool and attempt drop spindle spinning again and see if that makes a difference. I have a feeling it will. I think it's kind of silly that this ended up being the solution to that problem, but I am excited to try it again when I have a minute to do so. And I just purchased those on Amazon. I just did a search for carding brushes, and that was one of the first ones that came up, and I liked the green color, so I went with those. My next acquisition was on clearance. I forget if it was at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. I think it was Michael's. I got 2 of these Simply Tidy storage cases. They are clear, kind of briefcase shaped plastic bags. And I thought that these would be really great for yarn storage so that I can still see what's inside. So I got the 2 that they had. One's lavender, one's white. And I'm going to kind of keep an eye out to see if Michael's has these again in the future, because I really like this concept, although I have a feeling that because they were on clearance, it might be something that they no longer carry. But I liked this idea of having the clear packing organizers for yarn storage. Then my last acquisition was from a local yarn store. This is from Cream City Yarns. I went there not too long ago just because I was coming home from something else and it was on the way and I hadn't been in a while, so I decided to stop in. And while I was there, I found a tool that I had been looking for a long time. I'm gonna have to do the makeup YouTuber thing so that you can see it. But this is an I-cord maker, and this one, looks like the card fell out. This one is from the brand Cord Quill, so it's a little bit of a different one than ones I had seen online, but I really liked that it had a wood handle instead of a plastic one. I just think that that makes it look a little bit fancier. I have not had a chance to try this out yet because I haven't had anything that required a I-cord recently. It did come with a little carrying case as well, so you can just slide it in there and pull the drawstring closed to keep it nice and tidy and prevent it from snagging on your other projects, which I did think about when I put it away of like, oh, it came with a bag so that it doesn't hook things while you're working with it. But while I was there, they also had a set of Emma's yarn, and I didn't, sorry for the crinkly sounds, I didn't store this flat, so of course they all bunched up inside the bag here. But this is the what's it called? On the Vine pack, and these are 10 mini skeins of fingering weight yarn. And I picked this because it's in what I consider to be birthday colors. If you haven't been watching my channel for very long, I like to do a birthday cast on, and it's something I started the last couple years, but I've always associated my birthday specifically with the colors lime green and purple. I think because lime green was my favorite color for so much of growing up, but I have a February birthday, so a lot of the February, like birthstone, birth flower, all that stuff is purple. So I kind of just meshed the two together in my brain. So when I saw this color fade, I knew it had to go in my birthday bag of yarn. This will probably not be my birthday cast on for this year. I think I'll save it for a different year. But I haven't fully decided what colors I want my birthday cast on to be from my birthday bag stash, which is sitting behind me. But I'm 99% sure that I'm going to be casting on a ranunculus sweater. I did already purchase the pattern, or at least I think I purchased the pattern already. We'll see. Because I want one of those in my collection, and I thought fun birthday colors would be a good way to do that. So probably not with the On the Vine set, because I don't have a solid color to go with that right now, but I do have another set of minis with a solid color that matches that I think will probably be what I go with for my ranunculus. But that's it for acquisitions, other than I did end up getting 2 holiday gifts, because we did our holiday exchange a little late with some family members. So my in-laws gifted me 2 crochet kits. This one is Beetlejuice themed, so I think it makes Beetlejuice and Lydia, so the 2 characters in the center. Had to hold that so it wasn't shiny. But the book has directions to make just about everybody in the movie, so it was very cute. They also gave me the tiny Taylor Swift kit that I made last year, and then they also gave me the Harry Potter one, which makes a tiny Harry and Dobby with his sock, which as a sock knitter I thought was particularly funny that Dobby has his little sock. So I'm excited to make those. I think the finished Harry Potter and Dobby will probably go to the school library where I work to be like a little shelf decor. I'm not sure about the Beetlejuice ones yet. They might just end up in our Halloween decoration box. But I'm excited to make those. Speaking of making things, let's jump into one thing before our whips. So I have a rather random looking collection of yarn scraps. You can see my colors from the bouquet baby blanket, my extra yarn for my scrap sweater, extra yarn from a hat and scarf that I did last month, and extra yarn from the Sophie hood set that I made for my mom. And I'm calling these my weird scraps. So they are either a funky fiber content or a texture that doesn't quite match with my other scrap projects. Right now my other scrap projects I have going are all 4-weight acrylic yarn, and these don't fit in that category. So I decided I'm gonna start collecting all of my weird scraps that don't go with something else and use them to make some crochet baskets. And I'm gonna do this by holding yarn double or even triple so that it's a fairly dense fabric, and use it to make big baskets that I can use inside of my cabinets for storing things. So in addition to the clear plastic bag direction that I'd like to go in for new yarn, I figured making baskets with stuff like this would be good for holding scrap yarn or for projects that I know are going to be made soon, since then the top of the basket would be open. But that's kind of my plan for the odd scraps for right now. Moving into whips. As I said, I have had a to-go bag that always has a sock project in it. And this is my current pair of socks that I'm working on. So it's also for one of my in-laws. This one's for my mother-in-law. So it has the same kind of denim blue heel. And then the sock itself is made in a self-striping yarn. These are both opal wool. The blue solid color is in the just opal pullover and sock and wool line, in the color Jeansblau, which I'm guessing is blue jean. And the colorful one is from the opal aquarelle line, and it is in the color Duftos. I think that's the color name. I'm not sure because everything is in German. But it's the one with the butterfly on it instead of flowers or other things, as I learned from looking at the yarn online. And as I mentioned previously, both of those yarns were purchased from Seven Sisters Yarn in St. Louis. But you can find opal wool on Amazon and probably from other sites, maybe like Jimmy Bean's Wool would have it or something like that. So that's my to-go bag project. And then I also have this big bin that has kind of just been the catch-all for small-ish projects that I have going on. So I have my third sock colorway for my father-in-law. This is the opal tea time line. That's what the first color was too. The like pink and teal and green was from the same line. And it's in the color Plauderei. Plauderei, Plauderei. It's blues and purples, and it has the tea time label on it. But this is another self-striping that does kind of the like faux Fair Isle look, like the pink and green and teal socks. Also in this bag, I have a teeny tiny cotton thread project I'm working on. I am using the Sophie scarf design for this, and the goal is to make a cotton headband. And I just did this with some crochet thread that I got from Hobby Lobby. It was in one of those big packs of crochet thread, but it is the Artiste line, and it doesn't have a color name. It does have a number. It's HD0031, but it's mostly white with some light blue, some goldenrod yellow, some green, and it kind of is doing a stripe thing. But I wanted some tie cotton headbands for the summer, so I thought that this would be a good way to do them so that I would still get the like kind of thinner ends so it wasn't as bulky, and I like the look of the I-cord edging. So I'll probably do a few more increase rounds on this until it's maybe like this wide, I feel like is a good headband width, so that I can have those for the summer. And then the other project I have in here is a pair of mittens I started to go with my Sophie hood that I made for myself, and I got through most of the first one before I put this down. I think mittens are hard because they're not quite at, I'm not at the point with mittens where I have the pattern memorized like I do for socks. So there are parts of it that I can do out and about or without looking at the pattern, but I can't do the whole thing without looking at the pattern. These are the World's Simplest Mittens from Tin Can Knits, which is a great pattern. I use the same one to make the mittens for my mom, but this is what it looks like so far. So I'm still working up the hand. Yeah, I think that's it for that one. And I did split for the thumb, which is being held on some waste yarn. And I think that's all I have to say about those. I do like how long the cuff is on these. That helps it stay underneath a jacket better. And I do really like mittens. I think that might be a go-to gift in the future for me because they are fun to make. I haven't picked this up in a while. It probably wouldn't take me very long to finish this one and do the other mittens, so I should grab those again. But this is kind of the basket that stays by my crafting space at home it's just the catch-all for all of the tiny projects. So usually my sock bag is also in here when it's not going somewhere with me, but I keep it separate so that it is always easy to grab. My last whip that is like an actually active project is my timber pullover, which is a crocheted button placket pullover, and I just got through the notch cutout for the button placket and I'm working up the other side so it'll sit kind of like this and have like a tall collar with buttons going down the middle. It's kind of designed in such a way that it looks like a quarter zip sweatshirt but in crochet form, and it is knit side to side instead of bottom to top or top to bottom, which helps with the knit look. It's a lot of crocheting in the back loop to create those knit like stitches. This is one that I can only work on at home because it requires more than half of my attention to go to pattern reading, because every row until you get back to the part where there's no increases or decreases is slightly different. So this one requires a lot of focus at the moment. That's why it also hasn't had much progress made on it, but I don't mind this being kind of my long-term project where I just do a few rows every now and then. Usually my setup is to have the pattern open on one half of my computer screen and YouTube or a podcast or something that doesn't require my full attention on the other side of the screen, so that's been a good fit lately. I do have some plans for what I want to cast on next. I already talked about my birthday project. I also still have one pair of Taylor Swift socks left to do. I saved the Reputation ones for last because it's my favorite album. But I know I should do them soon because if I keep delaying them, you know, the risk of there being a new album before I finish the Reputation socks is higher. So I need to get those churned out, and then I have a couple of fun spring projects I'm excited about. I know I said I'm going to do a knit soap saver. I also want to do a project where I let the dice decide my colors again because I had fun the last time I did that. But I have a lot of fun projects planned for the near future, so I think we'll call it quits for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw today, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below so that you can be notified of all my crafty content right here on YouTube. I also talk about books once a month, so if you like that too, you can stick around. And if you want to follow me on other social media sites, that information is in the description box below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye everyone.